station, WTIM.
Welcome in to WTIM, your information station. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Before we get going here with another great interview, we would like to thank our sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. On the line with me now is Allison Mills, the Director of Financial Aid for Lincoln Land Community College. Good to hear from you, Allison. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, without a doubt, this will be a good one and a very informative one for people out there that might struggle with finance. When you hear financial aid, when you hear FAFSA, I'm definitely one of those people that gets a little bit caught up and I feel a little bit out of the loop on things. So we're going to straighten all that out today. So when we're talking about financial aid, Miss Allison Mills, or money for college, let's just start with the options. What are options out there for people?
So when we're talking about different options and money for college, there are several options. There are student loans, which is money that's borrowed. It can be either from the government or a private lender, and this is money that does have to be repaid. There's federal work study. It's a way for qualifying students to earn money to pay for college through part-time work on campus. There's also federal and state grants. This is one that we always encourage students to look at because it's essentially free money for college. This is something that is included when a student submits the federal application for federal student aid, which is also known as the FAFSA.
All right. Okay. So thank you for laying out the options right there. And those are pretty clear right there. Now you talk about FAFSA. That's another one of those things where, you need a lot of information. You got to have a lot of documents on you. When we talk about FAFSA, can you run us through that just a little bit? Student aid and where we can just get a little bit more educated on that one.
Sure. So the FAFSA, again, is the free application for federal student aid. It's basically an online application. It's available at studentaid.gov. Some of the things that a student is going to need to complete the FAFSA and that they want to have ready when they're filling that out is their Social Security number, both for the student and the parent, if the parent is required to be on the application. They're going to need, for the 24-25 application, their 2022 federal tax returns, any record of child support received during the calendar year of 2022, current balance of cash savings and checking, and records of investment. And this is all information that Department of Education will use to determine how much financial aid a student is eligible to receive.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense right there. And you need a couple different players to make all that work. And in 2023, that release date was a little bit later than usual. What was the reason for that?
Yes, that's correct. So normally the FAFSA opens October 1st each year. But for the upcoming 24-25 school year, it actually was delayed until December 31st because this year Department of Ed made significant changes to help simplify the process for applicants and families.
Okay. What were some of those simplification things that they did?
Well, the form has been simplified. It is very intuitive. So if a student or parent answers a question, it's not going to show all the questions that are could be on the FAFSA. It's going to show only those that are applicable to the student and family based on answers to previous questions. So that's one of the things. There are some aspects that have been simplified in our office that get kind of in the weeds. So I don't want to go into that information, but it's mostly on the front end with the student and the family where the questions have been reduced.
Okay, wow. So making it just a little bit easier right there. So you talked a little bit about some of the information that might be needed on the parent side of things. If we're talking about students, what do they need to be ready to fill out on FAFSA forms?
So the students, it's going to be basically the same thing as the parents. So they also would need their Social Security number. If they worked during 2022, they would need their federal tax return if they filed one. If not, they would want to have their W-2 from their employer. And then also if they have any current balance of cash savings and checking, they would want to have that available as well.
Okay, great. And when we're talking financial aid, you're the person we need to talk to about this. And I'm sure you've really seen it all. Been working with LLCC since 1995. Just a great career over there. You've probably seen, like I said, you've seen it all. What can we avoid some of the pitfalls when filing this information? You don't want to have to do it twice. It's pretty time consuming. What are ways that people can avoid these pitfalls?
One of the big pitfalls that we come across is establishing the FSA ID, which is the account username and password needed to complete the FAFSA. Students definitely want to make sure that when they're applying for their FSA ID, they don't use their high school issued email address. They want to make sure that they use like a Gmail account or a Yahoo account, something like that, because when they graduate high school, that high school email address will also come to an end, like their high school career is over and they're moving on to college. So that's one of the big ones. Parents, if they're required to be on the student's FAFSA, they want to make sure that they also have an FSA ID. And for the 24-25 year, they want to make sure that they're applying about 3 days in advance of completing the FAFSA, because Department of Ed will verify with Social Security Administration that the person applying for the FSA ID is actually the person who's applying. So they want to give that process a little bit of time before completing the FAFSA. So definitely making sure the FSA ID is complete and that all the information used to complete the FSA ID is remembered, like the Gmail account, the email account, or a cell phone number. The other advice that I would give is to apply early. This gives students and families their best chance for financial aid. Some of the grants that we administer here are on a first come, first served basis. So students that apply early have a better chance of receiving those grants. The other thing is, if you apply early, the FAFSA is done and you can check that item off of your to-do list.
Totally, it would be a big check off the to-do list right there. And you talk a lot about you talk a lot about doing this early, because there's a lot of communications that need to happen between multiple different parties out there, and this is all in order to really get it involved, if you can, in some of those grants. Do you have any of the information on some of those grants offered? Can we know about any of those?
Yeah, so we touched on that a little bit earlier. When you fill out the FAFSA, you're applying for all federal grants, which is the Pell Grant, which is the biggest one administered by Department of Education. There's also a grant called Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. That's also a federal grant, and that amount varies by school. And then you're also applying for state grants. So you don't have to necessarily fill out a separate application for some of your state grants. So the biggest state grant here in Illinois is the MAP grant, or the Monetary Award Program. So those are the three biggest grants that you're applying for when you complete this FAFSA. And again, that's free money that doesn't have to be repaid.
Right. Okay. And that's really important to remember right there. And these are you're already being entered into these by just filling out the FAFSA. And that's really important to know right there. And you talk about, getting it in early, rather than late. It's really good to do it early. What is that deadline that these applications need to be completed?
So the deadline can vary. Students will definitely want to check with whatever college they are attending, because each college can have different deadlines. At Lincoln Land, we have a more fluid deadline. We don't have a set deadline for students to complete the FAFSA. We do encourage, again, early completion, so students are eligible for as many grants as possible. And we also encourage students to apply prior to our tuition due dates for each of the semesters to ensure their FAFSA is in place and that they have payment ready for their classes when that tuition due date comes around for each term.
Totally. You talked a little bit about a website earlier that could be good for some information. Do you have any places people can go for information if they have questions?
Yes, the one I mentioned, the studentaid.gov, that has a ton of information, including the FAFSA application site is available there, but it does have information about all the grants that I've mentioned. It has information about student loans, borrowing rights and responsibilities, anything financial aid related. That website encompasses it all.
Beautiful. And you can go there. A lot of your questions can be answered right there. We're set to take ourselves a little break. We're talking right now with Allison Mills, Assistant Vice President of Financial Aid for Lincoln Land Community College. She's laying out the FAFSA process here and how to not miss out on any grant opportunities, and always have that done early. We're going to have more information from Allison here in just a little bit. You're listening to the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you so much to our sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do do better at Landmark. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. We will be back in just a little bit.
Your information station, WTIM.
Sounding
Let's check
great
the markets
so
now
far.
on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. 451.5. May corn down 1 1/4, 461 1/4. December new crop 480 1/4, down 2. March beans 12.24 3/4, down 15.5. May beans down 13.5, 12.33. November new crop 11.99 1/2, down 8.5. March wheat 6.11 3/4, up
Sorry,
a
folks.
penny. July wheat up 1/4, 6.26 1/2. March bean meal 360.40, down 2.90. March bean oil 46.53, down 79 cents. Livestock market, January feeders 231.87, up a nickel. February live cattle down 15 cents, 175.20. February lean hogs 74.07, up 17 cents. Energy market, March crude oil 76.45, up $1.36. Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network.
If you're looking for the latest in local hunting and fishing information, then join us for Central Illinois Outdoors with me, Jared White, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. here on WTIM. Every weekend, we'll offer detailed Central Illinois fishing reports from professional guides. We'll swap stories with local celebrity sportsmen, and I'll invite you to share your favorite stories as well. Central Illinois Outdoors with Jared White every weekend on all WTIM platforms and on demand at centralillinoisoutdoors.com. Brought to you by Bob Ridings in Pana, the Clinton, Illinois Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau, and Locked and Loaded in Pana.
I'm Jeff Grimmett, Assistant Vice President at People's Bank and Trust in Taylorville. People's Bank and Trust is proud to sponsor Taylorville Junior High School Students of the Month on all of the WTIM platforms.
Hi, my name is Ira Richmond at the junior high school. I'm in the 5th grade, Student of the Month. My aunt's name is Aunt Tiffy. I enjoy math and ELA. After high school, I'm considering working on the farm as a career.
Congratulations to these students on this honor from People's Bank and Trust. We put people first every day at People's Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Small towns are in, and Taylorville is poised for you and your family to join them. Taylorville has what you're looking for. Find out more, including upcoming events, by clicking the Small Town Taylorville icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Enjoy breakfast, lunch, or dinner at the new American Eagle restaurant in Taylorville daily, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. with seniors, veterans, first responders, nurses, and school staff getting 10% off every day. Check out their menu by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. We would like to thank our sponsors before we continue with this great interview, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. On the line with me is Allison Mills, the Assistant Vice President of Financial Aid at Lincoln Land Community College. We've been talking about FAFSA today. That's a mouthful. How are you today? Once again, Allison Mills, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you again for having me. I'm great.
Absolutely. And really, really glad you're in here. Glad you're doing great. And we're going to move right back into our FAFSA conversation here. We talked about deadlines and then what to have prepared when you're filling out FAFSA. But now what happens once that's been submitted? What do we need to do next?
So any schools that were listed on the FAFSA application will get the processed results and they'll reach out to the student. So that typically happens via the college email or the college portal. If schools need additional documents to process the student's file, they'll request that documentation. Once that documentation is processed, or if no additional documentation is required, the school will generate an offer letter to the student, which indicates the type and amounts of financial aid awarded. So I mentioned the college email and the college portal. So once a student applies for admission to a college, the college will generate an email to the student. So at Lincoln Land, it would be the student information at llcc.edu. So each college would do that. So we encourage students to check that college email and then the portal all the time for updated information about their financial aid.
Absolutely. The portal. You always got to stay in tune with the college portals out there. And you just to revisit the one little fact about emails, when you are filling out FAFSA and that type of stuff, you got to avoid your previous school's email. Got to use a personal email to get your college and portal access. Is that right?
So you don't want to use your high school email
Right.
anymore because that will be deactivated, but the college will then also assign you an email and you'll use that to sign into the portal. So I know it's a little bit confusing with all the different emails. But yeah, you can still use your Gmail account or your college email account. But that's how a lot of schools will talk to students is once they assign a college email, they'll start using that to talk to the student and families.
Sure. You can pretend that the high school email is just not anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. The previous
Right.
college, if you're coming from another community college, just don't even use those. Just going to gum up the works even more there. So that's really great to know. And this is a pretty big event I'm seeing here. A great opportunity for some juniors and seniors in the high school in our area. LLCC's Outreach Center in Taylorville is hosting a FAFSA completion night on Wednesday, January 31st. This will be a good one here, it seems.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to the event. So you mentioned juniors and seniors. We also encourage any current students who are college students already. They are welcome to come to this event also. Lincoln Land financial aid staff will be on hand to assist families with the completion of the 24-25 FAFSA application. Families are able to work at their own pace at the Lincoln Land facility in Taylorville and get help as needed.
Wow, that's a really good opportunity right there. So what does that look like? Do we bring our own laptops or their computers on hand there that helpers are going to be walking around to?
There will be computer labs, our computers there in the computer lab. Families are welcome to bring their laptops if they would like to do that as well. And then, yes, they'll be at their own station, working at their own pace, and staff will walk around, and as anybody has questions, they'll be able to assist as needed.
And questions can pop up at every single part of the process. They really can be. So it's nice to have that person right next to you. That's really, really valuable opportunity, it seems.
Yes, we get that a lot. Students are able to do a lot of the application on their own, but sometimes they get stuck on one little part, and that may be the only part that they get stuck on. But yes, somebody would be there to get them through that one little part.
Yeah, those FAFSA forms, they can be kind of daunting sometimes, but gosh, it would make it so much easier to have a professional right alongside you to help you along the way. That's going to be a really fun night there. What time for that event there?
So that event is actually from 4 to 7 at the Lincoln Land Taylorville Outreach Center.
Cool. Perfect. And then if we want to get registered, is there a process for that, or can you just show up? What does that look like?
We prefer that everybody registers in advance, and that can be done online at www.llcc.edu/Taylorville.
Okay.
They can also call the LLCC Taylorville Outreach Center at 217-786-2754 to register or to get more information about the event.
Super awesome. Right now we're talking about the LLCC's Outreach Center hosting a FAFSA completion night. That'll be on Wednesday, January 31st. Any more that the public would need to know about that one, Allison?
Nope, there's no additional information. I think how it's set up right now is families can sign up for hour time slots during that time period. They can also, I think you did ask, they also could walk in if they don't know what time they're going to be available during that evening. That's welcome. And I did mention early in the segment things that would be nice to have on hand when completing the FAFSA. So if families could bring those documents and then also have the FSA IDs ready to go at least 3 days in advance, that's also very helpful when coming to this event to do the FAFSA. Absolutely.
Listen back in this episode where Allison says all of the great materials that you are going to need to fill out those FAFSA forms. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. That's Allison Mills, the Assistant Vice President of the Financial Aid at Lincoln Land Community College. Learned all about FAFSA today. Got a little bit more informed on that. That'll do it for me, Tim Zalabak, here on the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you all for listening.
Your information station, WTIM.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville.